Harold Winters hated mornings. He hated the chirping birds that insisted on making a racket outside his window at 6 o'clock. He hated the way the sun came in through the blinds, mocking him with its cheerfulness. But most of all, he hated what he saw when he finally dragged himself to the window and tugged the blinds open. Across the street, life looked like a commercial. The Gales family's driveway was alive with activity. James Gales, tall and athletic, laced up his running shoes, waving to his wife before jogging off down the street. Maria Gales, graceful, beautiful, and irritatingly vibrant, stood in the yard watering flowers while the children Daniel and Sophie giggled as they zipped back and forth on their bicycles, their golden retriever running behind them, tail wagging, tongue flopping out in pure joy. Harold watched it all with a tight jaw and a sour taste in his mouth. Their house gleamed with fresh paint. Their lawn was always perfectly trimmed. Their cars sparkled like they'd just rolled off a dealership lot. Even their garbage cans were neat. Everything about them screamed wealth, health, and happiness. Everything Harold lacked. At 52, Harold lived alone in a house that sagged as much as he did. The siding peeled, the gutters clogged, and the grass grew taller than it should. He had no wife, no kids, no family that called. His job at the hardware store barely kept the bills paid. He ate canned soup most nights and drank whiskey most weekends. And so, every time he looked across the street at the Galeses, he burned with envy. It wasn't fair. Why should they have so much while he had so little? Why did life hand them joy and hand him bitterness? Harold didn't just stew in his resentment. He acted on it. The first time he called the police, it was over noise. James had been grilling in the backyard, music playing, friends and family laughing. Harold sat alone outside on his porch, the sounds of joy crawling under his skin like ants. At 9 p.m., sharp, he picked up the phone. "Yes, officer," he said, his voice oily with false concern. "My neighbors are being disruptive. Loud music, possible drinking. It's out of hand." The police came. Nothing came of it, but Harold smiled to himself as the party grew quieter, and once he realized he could poke holes in their perfect little bubble, he couldn't stop. If Maria had yoga in the yard with friends, Harold claimed it was an unlicensed business. If the kids laughed too loudly, he reported them as a public disturbance. Even the dog became a target. Harold called animal control, insisting it barked all night long, though it never did. It became a sick sort of hobby. Harold sat in his living room, blinds half-drawn, window open, watching, waiting, clutching his phone like a weapon. Every smile, every laugh, every hug exchanged across the street felt like an insult. His envy sharpened into hatred. The police began recognizing his address. Some officers came with tight smiles, others with visible irritation. "Mr. Winters," they'd say, "you can't keep calling us for this." But Harold only shrugged, acting as though he were a good citizen merely doing his duty. But alone, he seethed. Why didn't they see? Why didn't anyone else notice how smug, how arrogant, how undeserving the Galeses were? One warm July night, Harold sat on his porch with a glass of whiskey, glaring at the Galeses' glowing windows. Inside, shadows moved, laughter drifted out. He